Emotional, physical, and verbal abuse can affect anyone regardless of age, race, or socioeconomic background. The Center for Women and Families provides a safe haven for those in crisis, also provides prevention education in the community. Joining me now is CEO and President Deborah Greenwood of the Center for Women and Families of Eastern Fairfield County. Deborah, thank you so much for being here on Connecticut Style. Let's first off talk about how big of a problem domestic violence is in our state.
30% of the court cases in Connecticut, as well as nationally, are related to domestic violence cases. So what we've seen in the past year in Connecticut is serving 57,000 people who've been affected by domestic violence. In Bridgeport, in the greater Bridgeport area, we saw 5,000 of those 57,000. So
Wow.
It's significant. And that's the number of cases reported. We know there are many out there that have not even disclosed yet.
I know that you've also opened up some branch offices as well because there was such a need.
We have. One thing we found is that in the 6 towns we serve at the center, there are many individuals that are hesitant to sometimes come down to the greater Bridgeport area. So what we did is we try to simplify, and we opened 4 satellite offices, one in Monroe, one in Fairfield, one in Trumbull, and we just recently opened one in Stratford.
So Deborah, let me ask, how does the center actually help women?
We have a 24/7 crisis hotline. What'll happen is if someone, no matter what hour it is, needs services, they can call our crisis hotline. In addition to that, they can walk into any one of our locations. I mentioned the last 4 satellite offices, but our main hub is at 753 Fairfield Avenue in Bridgeport. And any day of the week they can come in, with the exception of weekends, but they can call that hotline and get help at any time.
And tell me what a family justice center is all about, because I know you were just named a location.
Yes. We've been working on this project for about 4.5 years, working with our state prosecutors at our Golden Hill Street Court in Bridgeport. And one of the things that I learned through many of the professionals is that this is known as best practices by the United States Justice Department. And what it does is it co-locates services all under one roof. So if a victim comes in and they need legal services, they need to speak to a police officer, obviously we do the advocacy and the counseling. If they need spirituality help, they need to feel better about themselves, take a free yoga class. What we're moving forward on by 2015 is to have all these services under one roof.
That's great. Deborah, let's talk a little bit about bullying. And I know that you've done a lot of outreach in schools.
Yes. There's a lot of staggering statistics, but what I'd like to focus in on about bullying is that bullies, if allowed to continue that behavior, by the time they're around 25 and 30 years old, these become our future abusers. So what we've seen and what we've heard in the media, not just here in Connecticut, but also nationally, is that young people are really bullying one another, and we're seeing that especially at the high school level, as well as grades 4 through 8. So what we've done in education is going into the classrooms, and our services are all free. Whether we're working with victims or we're going into the schools, we've put a strong focus on how to stop those types of violence against children, because as we've seen, if it continues, many kids have been taking their own life. And in the last 30 years, there's been a 50% increase in adolescent suicide.
Oh, that's terrible. Deborah, I think it's important to mention to our viewers that domestic abuse, let's go back to that, it can really happen to anyone. It doesn't matter where you live or how much money you make or anything like that. Yes.
There's the urban myth, is what I'd like to call it, where people assume that in larger cities, that like in Bridgeport and Waterbury and Hartford, that it's expected. Well, yes, the numbers are higher because they're larger cities, but if you look at the per capita population in some of our suburban towns, us serving Fairfield and Trumbull and Monroe and Easton and Fairfield, what we've seen is that those numbers are significant. With the economy downturn, we've seen a larger increase in most violent type of domestic violence cases. So we obviously work very closely with the police department.
And you're talking really about one of the richest areas in the entire country.
Yes.
So it really can happen anywhere. Tell us about the luncheon happening September 26th.
Yes, our luncheon will be happening at the Waterview in Monroe. And we have this year Dave Peltzer, who is an author and a former victim of child abuse. He wrote the book, A Child Called It, A Lost Boy, and A Man Named Dave. and he has survived, and he tells his story, and that's what he'll be doing on Thursday at 12 noon at our luncheon at the Waterview.
And that's who we were just looking at on our screen. And October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes.
So what do you have? Obviously, you have some activities planned.
We do. Across the state, there will be domestic violence vigils. We're hosting 7 vigils, actually one in each town we serve. And what we do is we remember those who've lost their lives in Connecticut. This past year, 16 individuals from infants to those as old as 90 years old were victims in homicides of domestic violence. So we remember those and we talk about the future. We talk about anti-bullying, and we try to get youth involved so they can become our new ambassadors.
Sure, prevention. Let's put the information up on the screen if you're interested in checking out the luncheon. It's the 16th annual. It's going to be held on September 26th at the Waterview in Monroe, 12 to 2. For more information, you can call 203-334-6154 or visit CWFEFC.org. Deborah, thank you so much for the information.
Thank you, Teresa.
All right, coming up next, cookbook author Dina Cheney shares a slow cooker recipe that's full of flavor when style returns. We'll be right back.